Crazy aunt claims adult child has to obey her because it's the law. Another post about a parent volunteering their adult child reminded me of this. It happened to my cousin, but I was there for the majority of the story. I remember it so clearly for a couple of reasons, in addition to just having a good memory. It was the first trip after my father had died, and it was, sadly, the last trip I took with my mother. She died less than a year later. My aunt was always playing the big shot of solving people's problems, but using my cousin as the actual person to take on the problem, always for free. If someone insisted on paying, CA kept the money. Need a babysitter, a ride, house cleaned, yard mowed, errands run? Oh, my daughter can do it as far as my aunt was concerned. The only reason Emily existed was to cater to her. Emily was her ultimate trophy. CA was entitled long before it became a huge thing. Cast: CA entitled aunt, Emily cousin, Mike Emily's boyfriend, me AXA, PO1 police officer 1, PO2 police officer 2, judge. My aunt has always been entitled. It's her personality type. My mother couldn't stand her little sister, so we tried to avoid her, while still maintaining contact with her husband and child. My uncle, their brother, lived further south in the state, so we always tried to avoid CA knowing when we were visiting. On this trip, I was staying with my cousin for a couple of weeks in the summer, and we were going to do the tourist things. CA thought that the university not being in session meant that cousin was slave labor. One day Emily decided that enough was enough. She was supposed to run errands for a friend of CA and had told her mother she had plans. Her mother, as usual, acted as though Emily had agreed and expected her to comply. Emily just didn't run the errand for the friend as demanded. It was that simple. My mother and I had arrived about 10 minutes before the phone rang. CA called, and though this was back during landlines, she was screaming so loudly that both my mother and I could hear both sides clearly. CA, how dare you embarrass me with my friends? You call Mrs. No Name and apologize immediately. You are grounded for a month and you may not drive the car at all. Now you make that call and go run those errands now. If anyone can explain how she was supposed to do this without using the car, I'd like to know. Emily, Mom, I'm 22. I do not live in your house. You do not pay my bills. And you do not own my car. Run the errands yourself. I have plans. My mom was a little nervous leaving us at that point. It's a mom thing. And a she has met her sister thing. Even though we were both fine. She left just after meeting Emily's boyfriend. We left and went to a water park and a few other things. We got back to the house and were talking about where to have dinner. Mom insisted on paying for us to go someplace really nice for dinner that night. We get back and Emily's car is gone. She called and asked where it was. Emily, Mom, do you have my car? CA, yes, I do. Your father brought me over so I could check and see if you had obeyed me. I told you that you were grounded and you were not there when I arrived. I'm keeping the car for a month, but I'm going to let Mrs. No Name borrow it because you have been so horrible to her. Emily, Mom, that's stealing. I want my car back now or I'm going to report it stolen. No, Mrs. No Name can't drive my car. CA, I'm your mother. What I say goes. Missy. You need to learn some respect and to get it through your head that I'm in charge and you are the child. You don't own anything. It's mine because I am your mother. The police will likely arrest you for wasting their time. Emily hangs up and looks at me. She is so angry she is crying in rage. Emily, AXA, if I call the police she's going to know you are here. Me, I can live with that. That fallout is a whole other story. She picks up the phone and calls the police. Tells them the car has been taken without her permission and where it is. Mike drives us over there. We do not want to miss the show. PO1 knocks on the door. CA answers. CA, hello, officers. Do you need something? PO1, madam. The vehicle in the drive matches the description and location of a vehicle reported stolen. CA, it's my car. I took it from my daughter because she is grounded from using it for being disobedient and disrespectful. PO2, I see. May we have a word with her, please? CA, looking very smug. She doesn't live here. PO1, who had noticed us across the street. You three, come over here please. PO1, did one of you call us? Emily, I did. It's my car, officer. My mother seems to think that she has control over it and me. CA, it's my car. I'm your mother and you have to obey me. It's the law. Tell her, officers. PO2. Actually, madam, there is no such law. Your daughter is an adult. CA, there most certainly is such a law. I'm going to report you to your chief for not knowing it. I may even sue. PO1. To cousin, may I see the car registration and your license please? Emily hands them to him. PO1. Madam, this car is registered in the name of your daughter and only your daughter. It's her car and you have no right to drive it. CA looks at the registration the officer is showing her and then snatches Emily's license from him and slams the door. The police officers look at each other for a moment and then shrug and ring the bell again. CA answers it, looking very smug. PO1. Madam, I'm going to need you to return the license, now. CA hands him the license that she has cut into several pieces. CA, now she can't drive because she doesn't have a license. She looks at Emily as though she just scored some odd victory, then she finally notices me. CA, Axa, what are you doing here? Me, just trying to have a nice visit with my cousin. She has hated me for years. CA, you need to leave. I didn't give you permission to visit. Where is your mother? Me, I don't need your permission. My mother is not here. I can travel without her. PO1. Madam, you are under arrest for destruction of government property. Apparently cutting up a valid license is a felony in some places. Who knew? And grand theft of this car. CA, you can't arrest me. I'm her mother. I have rights. PO2. Yes, you do. He then reads them to her. The officer explains to us that until she destroyed the license he had been willing to issue an appearance ticket. Then instead of being arrested she would just have had to appear in front of the judge and get a fine. This was a much bigger deal. Emily ran into the house to tell her father what had happened. We all chatted for a little bit until the phone rang. It was CA telling him to call their attorney. We left. I drove the car back to Emily's and took her to get her license replaced the next morning. The attorney called by my uncle apparently didn't know my aunt and he showed up at the first hearing, a week later, to try and get it dismissed. It looked to be going her way at first. CA's attorney, Your Honor, this is a family matter. It's simply a case of a mother disciplining her child and the child calling the police because her mother grounded her from using the car. Judge, so she got mad and called the police and she, not knowing that it was a crime to destroy the license, did so? CA's attorney, yes. Your Honor, that's pretty much it. Judge, prosecutor, do you have nothing better to do today? Prosecutor, no, Your Honor, I don't. I consider it rather important. When a 22-year-old woman has her car stolen, it doesn't matter who stole it. She has just as much of a right to justice as someone who has their car stolen by a stranger. Judge, 22? The victim is 22? Prosecutor, yes, Your Honor. The victim is a 22-year-old woman who is the sole owner of the vehicle in question. Her mother became enraged at her daughter. She then went to her daughter's home, stole her car and later destroyed her license. CA's attorney, Your Honor, I was not aware of the age or living situation of the victim. I was under the impression that the child was a minor who resides with her parents. CA was sitting there still looking smug. Her attorney was sweating bullets. Judge, CA, do you realize that these are very serious charges and if convicted you face up to 8 years in prison? CA, for what? I have the right to discipline my child as I see fit. She disobeyed me. She will think twice before doing it again. Judge, no, you don't. You have the right to discipline your child within the confines of the law. You have stepped outside of that parameter. You stole your daughter's car. CA, I'm her mother. It's my right. It isn't really theft because she is my child and her property belongs to me, by law. Judge, where did you get your law degree? CA, I don't have one. Judge, then let me be the first to explain to you that your child is a legal adult. Period. You have no right to anything of hers without her express consent. Period. You may not take her car without her permission. Period. You may not enter her home without her permission. Period. Do you understand that? CA, you don't know what you are talking about. I'm her mother. That gives me the right. I'm in charge. Judge: no, madam, I'm in charge. This case will be held over for trial. I went home a week later. CA eventually took a plea deal where she had 2 years probation and had to take parenting classes. The parenting classes were Mike's idea and the prosecutor thought it was great. We laughed hysterically over that because my cousin is an only child. LOL. Emily and Mike married a year later and moved the hell away from there. This took place about 30 years ago. CA maintained for the rest of her life that the judges, there were 5 for different status hearings, didn't know what the hell they were doing, and she was right. Crazy aunt tries to have me arrested for murder. Victim objects. If you watch television shows from the 70s and 80s, you will notice odd things. People smoking at work, on planes, even in hospitals. Telephones have cords. At a police station there are no computers on the desks and everyone is smoking. Things have changed a lot since then. That includes mental health standards and police procedures. Please keep that in mind. Caller: it had not been invented. There were no mass market mobile phones and the ones that existed were for the filthy rich and had limited use due to technology. It typically took a week to get your photos back and there were no selfies. Wearing a seatbelt was optional, as were child safety seats. Car windows had to be manually rolled down. It was a different world. These events happened a long time ago. Aunt posted a $500 US bond and had to appear in court the following week for the first hearing as her attorney was going to attempt to get it dismissed. Just to clarify, the attorney in question spoke only to my aunt and had only her version of the events. In spite of what you may see on television, that is generally how it works. Most attorneys don't investigate matters themselves and go off of what their client says and any official documentation provided by the opposition. In this case, the state. Anyway, this is what happened starting the day after that arrest and leading up to that hearing. To say that hell broke loose the next day is putting it mildly. Even though my cousin Emily had a ticket written by the officer from the night before stating that she had a valid license and to call it in if necessary, we opted to have me drive to the license branch to get a replacement. It only took a few minutes and we were on our way to the museum. We were both a little nervous because my aunt hadn't called or anything, and with her silence was something to be worried about. We left the museum to get some lunch and my cousin went to the restroom while I waited at the kiosk. As I'm standing there, a police officer approaches me. There are 3 others milling about, looking very out of place in that area. You know, the fake I'm supposed to be here and need to look fake busy behavior. The officer asks me for identification and as I go to pull my license out for him, I asked him what was going on and why he needed to see it. Me: sure officer, let me get it. What's going on? PO: I have a report that you are an endangered runaway involved in the trafficking of narcotics. I stopped cold and stared at the officer. He was not kidding. I started laughing. He was not amused. My cousin approached us. Me: I don't suppose the name of the person who gave you the tip is Crazy Aunt? PO: I can't give that information out. Me: hands him my license. As you can see, I'm over the age of being considered a runaway. I was 21. I'm also not involved with narcotics of any kind, and if you need to discuss this further you can contact my attorney, and please tell my crazy aunt I said to drop dead. PO: I'm sorry for bothering you but we had to check. Me: I get that. Maybe I was an endangered runaway and until you check you can't possibly know that. What you should know, however, is that your source was arrested last night for stealing a car and destroying government property. PO: well, I'll check on that when I get back. Maybe we need to add another charge to her list. Have a nice day. Cousin and I get our food and head back to her place. When we arrive there are about 30 messages on her answering machine. For you young people, it was a primitive form of voicemail. Several were from my brother. It seems that my aunt, delusional as ever, called him and told him I had been arrested for drug trafficking and was in really serious trouble. He was a little concerned. I called him back and told him everything. Thankfully, he hadn't booked a flight to get to me, so CA failed on that front. I told him our plans for the evening and he told me to be very cautious around my aunt. I told him not to worry, I'd be fine. The other messages were from Crazy Aunt to me, demanding that I leave, explaining that I'm not allowed by law to visit that state without her permission or without being with a parent or legal guardian. The world was a strange place in her head, and she was going to have me arrested if I didn't leave. Naturally she blamed Emmy for her arrest the previous evening. Emily and I went out for dinner and to attend the concerts in the park series that was going on that week, and I had a feeling I was being followed. I was trying to pinpoint where my crazy aunt was in the crowd when Emily said, softly, straight ahead, 3 o'clock. Yup, there she was. Unlike everyone else who was facing the band, she was staring at us. Just staring. We decided to cut the evening short and went home. I like weird, but that was sinister. About an hour later there was a banging on the door. It was the police. Again. We let them in. They had a tip that it was a drug house and asked if we minded them searching it. Of course we minded. We asked if they had a warrant and suddenly my crazy aunt appears. P.O. Madam, you can't be here right now. C.A. My daughter lives here. P.O. I'm sorry, madam. You still will have to wait outside. Me. So, you gave them another false tip? C.A. No. I told you that you would be arrested and I was right. If you aren't hiding drugs, then why do you care if there is a warrant? Answer me that. Me. Because privacy is important to us as citizens in a free country. P.O. Madam. No one is being arrested. We were following up on a tip and apparently you are the one that made the accusation. C.A. Arrest her. She isn't supposed to be here. P.O. Why not? C.A. Because she doesn't have my permission to be here. I've told her specifically that she is not allowed to visit my daughter without my permission. P.O. Do you own this property? C.A. Number. My daughter lives here so it's my home too. Emily. No, it's not your home. I invited AXA here, now please leave us alone. C.A. She doesn't have my permission to even be in this state. P.O. Your permission is not required to visit this state, or even this person. They are both adults. Me. Officers, this woman has now made 2 false complaints against me, harassed me, and threatened me. Is there any chance you can arrest her, lose her paperwork for about 10 days? By then I'll be home. C.A. They can't do that. I have every right to keep you away. Besides, I have to be in court next week because of you. P.O. Why does she have to be in court? Emily. Because she stole my car and torn up my license yesterday. P.O. That was her? I heard about that at the station this morning. Me. What are my options? P.O. I'm sorry, but we can't lose her paperwork, though I certainly sympathize with you. You can, however, press charges against her if you like. It would get her out of your hair until morning, at least. Me. I'll take it. I signed the form and she was arrested, again. This time she posted $1,000 and was released. Because the police clearly don't understand the law and how she is right, she goes back to trying to harass me and control Emily. The problem was that now she couldn't find us, while she was busy being arrested and bonding out. I talked to my mom, and her brother and sister-in-law. Mom got us a hotel suite booked under the maiden name of my good aunt. Emily and I packed up and moved to the hotel 4 days later. There is a knock on the hotel room door. I answer it to find the police standing there. This was different. 2 were in uniform and 2 were in regular clothes. Detectives. Oh boy. I sighed. Told them I'm not a runaway and there are no drugs, but come on in anyway, and offered them some of our soda supply. They declined. Detective. Do you know why we are here? Me. Not specifically. But if I were to guess, I'd say my crazy aunt has cooked up some new story to sell to you. Detective. Do you know where we can find Emily? Me. Yes. Detective. Is this a confession? Me. To what? Detective. To her murder. Me. What? Detective. Your aunt says that you have always hated your cousin and that 4 days ago you got her out of the way and then killed Emily and dumped her body. We would like to know where her remains are to give her family closure. Cooperation would go a long way here. Me. First, crazy aunt is the one that has always hated me. It's a long story. Emily is one of my best friends as well as my cousin. Second, I not only didn't kill her, she isn't dead. Detective. Then where is she? Me. Taking a shower. We just got back from the pool and chlorine does nasty things to her curls. She'll be out in a minute. Sure you don't want a soda while we wait? One officer had moved to the bathroom door and could hear someone in there. He nodded at the detective. P.O. Do you have any weapons in here? Me. Just the knife by the sink. I handed them each a Coke and took one myself. I yelled into the bathroom, "Hurry up, we have company." Emily squealed. "Mikey, I knew she'd hurry up now." I returned to my seat. There was another knock on the door. This time it was Mike. He came in, grabbed a soda, sat down and looked at the police. He nods to the two plainclothes cops and says, "Detectives." They nodded. Mike: "So, what is she claiming you did this time?" Me: "Murder." Mike: "Cool. Who'd you kill?" Me: "Emily." Mike: "Damn, I was going to marry that girl." Me: "You do and CA becomes your mother-in-law." Mike: "I don't plan on returning from the honeymoon. She'll never find us." Me: "I thought that when we left M's place and decided to stay here. Yet here we are." Mike: "Fair point. How did they find you?" Me: "Good question. Detective, we had your information and we called your home. Your father initially refused to tell us where you were and insisted on calling the precinct directly to make sure it was really the police. Smart man. Then he told us where you were. He would like you to call him when we are done here." I picked up the phone and called my brother. I let him know everything was fine and that I'd call back later with more details. Emily comes out of the bathroom and rushes to see Mike. It takes a second for her to notice the police. Emily: "Oh good grief. What is she claiming you did this time?" Me: "Murder." Emily: "Wow, she's pulling out all the stops here. Who'd she say you killed?" Kennedy: "Me." "You." Emily: "Me? But I'm not dead." Detective: "May we see some identification?" Emily handed it to him and we gave them the whole story. The officers just shook their heads. Detective: "We will let her know that you are alive and that you will contact her when you see fit. We will not disclose your location to her." Me: "So she gets away with more harassment?" Detective: "I'm afraid so. The reality is that we can't prove that there was malicious intent here even though there was. When neither she or anyone else that knows Emily had seen or heard from her in days, she can make the case that she reasonably concluded that Emily was in danger. You were the last person known to be with her, so you are the logical starting point." Me: "Well, thanks for not coming in with guns blazing." Detective: "We only do that on television. Randomly shooting up hotel rooms creates lots of paperwork and we hate paperwork. Try and enjoy the rest of your visit here." Me: "Oh, I will." She goes to court in a few days for car theft and I wouldn't miss that for anything.